Hi everybody, this is Leo Vallant. Welcome to my home, an informal evening with Leo Vallant. Tonight I got a comment in regards to my Revolution from the Top series, and from one of my first and finest subscribers who calls himself I. Yeah, it's very confusing. I think that I is me, but now it's him. Well, I decided to just read the reply, of course, leaving out all the preliminary catching up chit-chats. So here it goes. Be prepared for some stuttering because I'm not going to go into this with my usual support of several dozen reading rehearsals that I do with all of my polished videos. You know, where you see me in a clean shirt and with my Japanese screen behind me. So yeah, let's get started. Mr. I, in regards to your worries that life may be excessively controlled under a machine intelligence system, well, you are equating coordination and assistance with control. You see, with a full total surveillance from cradle to the grave, everybody's complete psychological and personality profiles will be a known quantity. Probably quality too. So machine intelligence will be like a servant that can anticipate all the master's needs, even before he or she knows themselves what those needs would be. One theorist I once listened to supposed that machine intelligence would become like a background appliance, and people would take it largely for granted. Oh, yeah. I just remembered my stipulation about population control. Then that might seem restrictive and controlling. But even then, population concerns could largely be handled socially, culturally, and economically without the heavy hand of machine intelligence rising up too visibly. It could be emphasized in their history lessons in schools, how their ancient world, which is our present world, was a stinking mess of overpopulation, with people reduced to begging to other people to be their wage slaves. Oh, please give me a job, please give me a job. And having to toil for their bread, and never knowing the sweet taste of freedom, unless in retirement when they're too old to appreciate it anyway. And then the system would have developed for them a new tradition of bestowing wealth for life on every newborn baby. And that would make parents pause before making babies because such income would necessarily be drawn from their own. Yes, at first we could expect that there would be the super wealthy who could afford anything. But over the generations, any overindulgence in baby making would work to level such a family down until they would also feel the pain of childbirth. But they'd be feeling it in their bank accounts. We can see how culture works in regards to population limiting. For instance, the English independent farmers and aristocracy passed down property by the law of primogeniture. That is, first sons get all. The way this worked in practice is that people would plan to have both an heir and a spare, and daughters would come along. Yeah, how could you stop them, right? Third sons were seen as most imprudent, or the result of two-son families trying for a daughter. Yes, there would arise the problem was what to do with the propertyless sons. Well, extra sons would either go into the church or into the military. Indeed, it's like the universities Oxford and Cambridge, they were developed basically to educate those going into the church. That is, second sons. Yeah, in the ruling classes, large families were the exception. Thomas Malthus, in his famous essay on population, well, I don't remember his arguing that point, but only that there didn't seem to be any mechanism for keeping the common poverty-stricken people from breeding like rats. But we have found there's such a mechanism today. That is, we cut men's working wages down so that men can no longer support their households exclusively through their own labor. And so this requires that the women folk also work. And yeah, they say that educated women naturally have less children, but this is to assign the wrong mechanism to the phenomenon. It isn't education, no. It's working that sterilizes women. They can't work and have babies too, right? However, in a machine intelligence workerless world, well, this mechanism would break down. Given both leisure and affluence, well, women might want to have pet babies too, along with all their cats and small dogs. But outside of the stipulation in regards to population and resource sustainability, people would have few causes for concern. Well, yeah, in regards to business, if people are still worried about that, I don't think they would be. We only have to look at the aristocratic and even the barbarian view towards business. Toiling for money is seen as slave work. Free and rich people live a noble life of, well, whatever it is rich people do. Yeah, in Europe, from what I gather from all the literature I've read, is that men should engage in riding, hunting, shooting, racing, gaming, dancing, and cards. Today, we would include sports among all of that. In China, there was the more structured expectations that men become accomplished in the 8 arts, subdivided scrupulously into 64 subcategories. And those would include all that's in the European list, along with archery, calligraphy, art, and poetry. Yeah, people would have a lot to do more than worrying about where the money's coming from, especially if the machine intelligence system is taking care of business. Then, of course, there's a concern that no human tampering could ever improve on the management of the machine intelligence system. That should leave people content to be happy, right? But yes, there might be certain people who are inclined to complain that they're not getting enough. But we need to understand that the machine intelligence system is designed to maintain a total, intricately crafted balance where every individual alive in the system is getting their planned out slice of the pie. So anybody who wants more would be taking it away from somebody else. Yeah, what else is new? That happens all the time now, right? But traditionally, such property and power grabs have been made using force of arms, like the mafia takeovers or barbarian conquest, or as it works out today, with faction-driven elections supported by the police and the army. But the machine intelligence system will keep its monopoly on violence intact. And unless democracy leads to the extinction of the human race, it must certainly disappear from the face of the earth. And the machine intelligence system will never have to worry about some popular mandate. better described as the dictatorship of the 51% over the 49. Yeah, that kind of talk comes from my series, Democracy is a Bad Thing, in 7 parts. It's a pretty good series. Oh, and then there's my new video series, The Power of Mythology, in 2 parts, with the first part being an intro looking at past mythology-based civilizations, and part 2 being a kind of addendum to Revolution from the Top, proposing the idea that we could have a new mythology-based civilization in our future. So yeah, if the machine intelligence system did take the route of implementing a mythology, that is, some overall quasi-religious set of aesthetic moral beliefs, well, it would be almost obvious that the machine intelligence system would frown on greed and grabbiness, and such traits would be socially frowned upon. Yeah, we can see how that works if you read the Jane Austen series of novels. Good way of passing your time. And time and again, I've emphasized that people are indeed social animals and only want to get along. Yes, as I point out in my Democracy is a Bad Thing series, part 5, I believe, the us versus them dynamic kicks in for larger groups, and it seems that people are almost evolutionarily programmed to start making enemies of their former friends and neighbors in order to push a conflict that will kill or banish the excess numbers of themselves. Yeah, both archaeologists and anthropologists have looked at primitive Paleolithic societies, and they seem to have had a built-in population control mechanism, as these societies typically had a very low population densities over the territories they covered. They also had a strong warrior ethos, which is another way of saying that they looked forward to killing each other. It's been the express purpose of every well-designed religion to control for and minimize the workings of this us versus them dynamic. And it's still with us today. We see it arise in the form of factionalism, protests, and now even with the occasional insurrection. Actually, I've been toying with the idea of making a video, well, now with these more informal casual videos, I'll just lay out the idea now and maybe work on it later. That it's humanity has evolved with 2 specific but mutually exclusive personality types, where we're either one or the other, and these two types are evolutionary complements to the us versus them dynamic. The way I think it goes is that most people, probably 2/3, that go along with the ancient creation stories of the war in heaven, which I discuss in part 2 of my Black Sins, Red Sins video. Well, yeah, the larger part of people would identify with the primary group as it is. It's in the us versus them couplet. They are the us people. But the smaller part, the thems, would be almost deterministically compelled to look for trouble. And being the smaller against the larger, well, they are almost doomed to be killed or banished. It is like an innate, inborn, suicidal impulse that kicks in for people who feel too crowded in their societies. It's kind of ironic, isn't it, that people who complain about the group would act in such a way as to make it better by getting themselves thrown out of it, or or even killed. Yeah, and to be more efficient about it, we could just instantly toss out anybody who even begins to complain. Yeah, I know that sounds bad, but if I'm right, then this would work great for the 2/3 of people who just want to get along, who never rock the boat, who never make any waves. And if these people are the only ones that live to breed over about 20 straight generations, well, that is humanity, we might finally be able to get past that primitive evolutionary vestige of the us versus them dynamic. Us versus them has been biting us all on the butts. Well, this looks like a good controversial place to stop. Thank you, everybody. Here's your reply, Mr. I. Oh, and anybody who wants to leave a comment, leave a comment. If it gets me to thinking, I'll probably give you a long rambling answer just like this. Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.